My name is Barbara, and I'm 37 years old. I've been a single mother for the past 10 years, ever since I lost my husband in a tragic road accident. He was my first love, the kind of man who'd write me silly poems on napkins and fall asleep holding our baby girl close to his chest. When he died, it felt like the entire sky had collapsed around me. But there was one reason I kept breathing.
Maya.
She's 10 now. My daughter. My light. My heartbeat. A brave, curious girl with big brown eyes and a head full of soft curls. She was only 3 when her father passed, but somehow she carries his kindness in her bones. And every day, when I look at her, I'm reminded why I never gave up. We had our little rituals. Our sacred Sunday evenings, for instance. Maya would sit on the bathroom rug while I gently detangled her hair with our wide-tooth comb, and she would read stories aloud. I always whispered in her ear, "These curls are your crown, baby. Don't ever let anyone take them from you." But I didn't whisper it loud enough, because I never imagined someone from my own family would try to rip that crown away from her. After my husband passed, I tried to rebuild my life piece by piece. With nowhere else to turn, I moved back to my hometown, Willowdale, a quiet place I had once dreamed of escaping. I thought going back would give Maya and me some sense of support, maybe a fresh start. But support never came. My parents, Diana and Frank, were present, but never truly there. They said the right things during the funeral, put their arms around us when the neighbors were watching, and then slowly drifted away once the casseroles stopped coming. Their version of comfort was shallow. Polite words, stiff hugs, and constant judgment masked as concern. And then there was my younger sister, Chloe. Chloe had always been competitive, even when there was no competition. She saw Maya as a reflection of everything she thought I didn't deserve: attention, affection, admiration. It started small, snide comments about Maya being spoiled or me overcompensating. Then it escalated. On Maya's 9th birthday, Chloe gave her a hair straightener, wrapped neatly with a card that read, "Time to look more normal." I tried to laugh it off, tried to pretend it was a misguided gift and not a targeted insult. After all, family is family, right? But deep down, I knew there was something darker brewing beneath Chloe's bitterness. Still, I ignored the red flags. Because when you're a single mother, drowning in bills, grief, and isolation, you cling to whatever family you have left, even if that family holds you just tight enough to keep you from swimming to safety. And then 3 weeks ago, the bottom fell out. It started with a strange, burning pain in my lower back. I chalked it up to exhaustion, overwork, maybe just stress from working overtime at the diner. But then the pain got worse. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and walking even a few steps left me winded. I was in denial until I collapsed on the kitchen floor one morning while packing Maya's lunch. I'll never forget the sound of her small voice calling my name, her backpack still slung over her shoulders, her eyes wide with fear. "Mom? Mom, are you okay? Should I call someone?" My neighbor Lona, a kind woman who lived 2 doors down, happened to knock just minutes after I collapsed. When she found me on the floor, barely able to speak, she rushed me to the emergency room without hesitation. I was burning up, drenched in cold sweat, and clutching my side as waves of pain racked my body. After what felt like hours of blood work, scans, and urgent murmurs by nurses, the doctor finally came in with a tight expression. "Barbara," he said gently, "you have a severe kidney infection, a urinary tract infection that's spread upward. We need to admit you right away. It's borderline septic. Another day's delay could have been fatal." I was stunned. My mind reeled, not just from the diagnosis, but from the fear that came with it. Who would take care of Maya? I had no siblings I could trust, no extended family nearby. My best friend had moved across the country, and my in-laws had cut off contact after my husband's funeral. And Maya couldn't stay in a hospital room. She needed warmth, stability, someone who could make her feel safe. I had no choice. With a trembling hand, I dialed the number I had hoped never to call. Chloe answered on the second ring. Her voice was unusually bright. "Hey, Barb. Long time. Everything okay?" I explained everything: the infection, the hospitalization, the need for help. Her reply was immediate. Of course we'll take Maya.
Don't worry, sis.
Just focus on getting better. You've done so much on your own. Let us handle this for a while. Every instinct in my body screamed no. But my body was too weak, my options too few. I was a mother caught between a hospital bed and a terrifying unknown. I looked at Maya, who sat quietly beside me, her curls tied back in a loose ponytail. I reached for her with one arm, careful of the IV needle in the other. I whispered, "It's just for a few days, sweetheart. Be strong, okay?" She nodded, her bottom lip trembling. Then she whispered something that still echoes in my chest. "Will you come back with your crown?" At the time, I thought she was just being poetic, trying to be brave. But now, I understand exactly what she meant. Because when I left her in the care of my family, I had no idea I was handing her over to the very people who would try to break her. The hospital room felt colder than it should have. Not because of the air conditioning, but because of something deeper, something empty. The kind of cold that creeps into your bones when you're alone, vulnerable, and unsure if the people caring for your child are the ones she actually needs protection from. I lay there for days, the steady drip of the IV line in my arm reminding me of every second I was away from Maya. I counted them in silence, hour after hour, wondering, was she sleeping okay? Was she eating? Were they treating her with kindness? I tried calling home, of course. On the second night, I dialed the number with trembling hands. My mother, Diana, picked up. Her voice was brisk, almost mechanical. "She's fine. You just focus on recovering. Chloe's helping too." That name made my stomach clench.
Chloe.
The same Chloe who once told Maya she looked wild with her curls. The same Chloe who rolled her eyes every time Maya asked questions or expressed joy. And now, she was watching over her? Still, I told myself to trust. They were her grandparents. Her aunt. Surely, they wouldn't hurt a child, especially one already grieving the loss of a father.
Right?
The days passed slowly. The antibiotics helped, but the pain lingered. The doctors wouldn't discharge me until my infection was fully under control. I kept myself distracted with books, hospital TV, and the occasional visit from Lona, who brought flowers and updates from the neighborhood. But Maya never called. Not once. Every day I'd check my phone, waiting for a "good night, mama," or even a drawing sent as a photo, anything for my little girl. There was nothing. And then, on the 6th day, I was finally discharged. I stepped out of that hospital with my discharge papers in one hand and hope in the other. Hope that I would soon see Maya's smiling face, her arms flying around my waist, her voice saying, "You're home." Instead, before I could even make it back to the house, my phone rang. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. "Hello." I answered, unsure. A soft voice replied. Hesitant. Familiar. "Barbara, it's Lona." I didn't know who else to call. I was cleaning the back room when I heard screaming.
Crying.
It was Maya. I saw what they did to her. I called the police. They took her away from there. I'm so sorry. The world spun. I could barely keep my balance. "What do you mean they took her away? What happened to my daughter?" Lona's voice cracked. You need to come see her yourself." 2 hours later, I sat in a plain, quiet office at Child Protective Services, across from a woman with gentle eyes and a voice that felt too calm for the words she was about to say. Her name was Nancy Kim, and she introduced herself as Maya's assigned social worker. I gripped the arms of my chair. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. "Barbara," she began, "I know this is difficult, but I need to be very honest with you about what happened." I nodded slowly. "Please, just tell me." Nancy leaned forward and spoke clearly. "Your daughter was accused of stealing $500 from your mother's purse. When Maya denied it, your sister Chloe cut off her hair with kitchen scissors. Your mother Diana slapped her across the face. Your father Frank was present, and he did nothing to stop them." I felt like the floor had vanished beneath me. Nancy continued. "Your housemaid, Lona, called 911 after hearing the commotion. Police and paramedics arrived shortly after. Maya had visible bruising on her cheek and uneven bald patches from where her hair was cut. She's currently in a safe facility under CPS protection and trauma observation. I couldn't breathe. I had trusted them. I had trusted them with my daughter while I was vulnerable and sick, and they had emotionally and physically abused her. Nancy reached into a drawer and pulled out a small clear plastic bag. Inside it was a thick bundle of Maya's curls tied with a faded pink ribbon. My throat closed. I covered my mouth, but the sob escaped anyway. It wasn't quiet. It was the guttural, wounded cry of a mother who had failed to protect the one person who mattered most. But she wouldn't steal, I whispered. She doesn't even understand money like that.
She's 10.
She's just a kid. Nancy nodded. We believe you. During the police's preliminary interview, Chloe admitted that she hid the money herself in the garage, just to teach Maya a lesson. Your parents were aware. They went along with it. I froze. My chest burned. They had plotted this? Against a child? Nancy looked me in the eye. Barbara, would you like to press charges? I stared at her through tears that wouldn't stop falling. My hands curled into fists. No, I said slowly. I want to bury them in court. The very next morning, I walked into the office of Attorney Victoria Hale with Maya's severed curls still in the plastic evidence bag. Victoria was everything I needed in that moment. Calm, sharp, and fiercely protective. The kind of woman who didn't waste time on polite outrage. When I finished telling her everything, the kidney infection, the hospital stay, the betrayal, and the assault on my daughter, she leaned back in her chair, took a breath, and said firmly, "We are not letting them walk away from this." Within 48 hours, Victoria filed 3 criminal charges in state court. Felony child abuse against Chloe and Diana. Conspiracy to falsify evidence and emotional abuse. Child endangerment and failure to protect against Frank for standing by during the attack. The police had already arrested all 3, based on Lona's eyewitness testimony, photos of Maya's injuries, and Chloe's own recorded confession. The evidence was overwhelming. Maya, meanwhile, had been temporarily placed in a child trauma therapy center under CPS supervision. I was allowed to visit her once a day. The first time I saw her there, sitting quietly in a sky-blue hospital gown, holding a stuffed bunny and staring at the floor, my heart cracked into 1,000 pieces. Her hair was nearly gone, just short tufts sticking out unevenly across her scalp. But what shattered me more than anything was her silence. She didn't even look up at first. I knelt beside her. "Maya," I whispered, my voice barely steady. "It's me. Mama's here." She looked up slowly. Her lip trembled. "Mama, do I still look like me?" I couldn't stop the tears this time. I took her small hands in mine. "You look like the strongest girl I've ever seen. And we're going to fix everything. I promise." We held each other, rocking side by side, both of us crying. But these weren't just tears of pain. They were the first tears of survival. The courtroom was packed. Local reporters had filled the last row. Curious townspeople stood along the walls, whispering quietly as the bailiff called out the case number. But none of that mattered to me. All I could focus on was the small, trembling hand wrapped around mine, Maya's. Her short, uneven hair was tucked behind her ears, and she wore a soft pink sweater that Lona had brought her from home. She sat up straight, chin high, but I could feel her nerves through her grip. Across the aisle sat Chloe, Diana, and Frank, flanked by their public defenders. Chloe's face held that same smug indifference she always wore, like she didn't believe any of this was actually real. Diana looked pale, but there was no remorse in her eyes. And Frank, he never once looked in our direction. The prosecution began. They played the body cam footage from the responding officers. Maya crying, her face swollen from the slap, her scalp patchy and red. Her voice, a whisper, repeated through the courtroom. "I didn't take the money. I didn't." Next, they presented the Child Protective Services report, which detailed the physical and emotional trauma Maya had suffered, and how Chloe had confessed to hiding the $500 in the garage to frame her. Even Diana had signed a sworn statement admitting she had known about the fake accusation but still participated in punishing Maya to teach her a lesson. Finally, they introduced me. I walked to the witness stand with slow, steady steps. I took the oath. And then I spoke. "My name is Barbara," I said, my voice echoing slightly in the high-ceilinged room. "I'm 37 years old. I lost my husband 10 years ago, and I've raised my daughter, Maya, alone ever since. She is the best thing in my life, the reason I kept going when I had nothing left." I paused, swallowing the knot in my throat. When I got sick, I trusted my family to look after her. Instead, they humiliated her, hurt her, robbed her of something she cherished, her identity,
Her dignity.
they abused a 10-year-old child and stood by while it happened. My eyes locked with the judges. This wasn't a mistake. It was cruelty, and it deserves punishment. I sat down. Maya squeezed my hand and gave a tiny nod, her silent way of saying, "You did good, Mom." Then came the moment we had waited for. The judge, solemn and steady, read the verdict. Chloe, 7 years in state prison, with no parole for the first 4 years, for felony child abuse and conspiracy to falsify evidence. Diana, 5 years in prison, with mandatory psychiatric evaluation and counseling for assault and emotional coercion. Frank, 2 years in county jail, with mandatory anger management and parenting rehabilitation for failure to protect. The judge's final words rang through the room. This court stands with the innocent. And today, the innocent child in this case leaves this courtroom with her dignity restored. Maya leaned her head on my shoulder, and I knew, in that moment, we had won. After the sentencing, I declined every interview request. I didn't want Maya's pain turned into headlines. I didn't want my daughter's trauma to be dissected by strangers for curiosity's sake. We needed time to grieve, to breathe, to find peace. We never stepped foot in my parents' house again, not even to collect the boxes they left behind. Instead, I used part of my emergency savings to move us into a small, 2-bedroom rental apartment on the outskirts of Maple Hollow, a quieter town where no one knew our past. The walls were thin, and the kitchen was barely big enough to turn around in, but it was ours. For the first time in years, we were surrounded by silence, the kind that felt safe. Maya started weekly therapy with a counselor named Ms. Taylor, a warm, gentle woman who specialized in childhood trauma. At first, Maya didn't speak much during sessions. She just stared out the window, drawing quietly. But slowly, she began to open up. And with every word she shared, a tiny piece of her spirit returned. One day, she brought me a drawing. It was a little girl, smiling, with long curly hair, standing on a hill under a rainbow. "This is me," she said, "when my hair grows back." I smiled, tears stinging my eyes. "It's already growing, sweetheart. And so are you." As for me, my body was healing. The kidney infection had cleared completely. My follow-ups were good. But emotionally, that took longer. I had spent so many years running on survival mode that I didn't know what peace even looked like. But I knew I had to start somewhere. Cooking had always been my safe space. I used to cook with my husband, and even after he passed, I'd kept our favorite old recipes scribbled in a notebook: pancakes, slow-cooked stews, homemade granola. It made me feel close to him. It made me feel whole. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I started filming myself. Nothing fancy. Just me in our tiny kitchen, cooking real food with honest stories. I called the channel Meals with Barbara. The first time I uploaded a video, my hands shook. I burned the chicken and forgot to smile. But people watched. They commented, "Your voice is soothing." This made me cry and smile. You're helping more than you know. One video became 10. 10 became 20. Within a month, I got the email that changed everything. "Congratulations. You are now eligible for YouTube monetization." I stared at the screen, stunned. Maya peeked over my shoulder. "What does that mean?" I smiled, blinking away tears. "It means we're going to be okay." Actually, we were going to be more than okay. A year passed. And in that year, everything changed. My channel, Meals with Barbara, grew beyond anything I had ever imagined. It wasn't just a side project anymore, it became a full-time income. With over 120,000 subscribers, brand partnerships with small organic food companies, and recipe requests flooding in weekly, I had built something real. Something that mattered. People didn't just tune in for the meals. They came for the calm, the stories, the honesty. I shared bits and pieces of my life, the joy, the pain, the healing, and in return, I received hundreds of messages from people around the world who said, "Your story helped me find strength." But my proudest success wasn't digital. It was sitting right across the breakfast table from me every morning, smiling, laughing, and biting into heart-shaped pancakes. Maya. Her curls had grown back, longer and glossier than before. Her eyes, once dimmed by trauma, now sparkled with light again. She had made new friends at her new school, joined a drawing club, and even wrote a short story for a class assignment. It was about a lion cub who survives alone in the jungle after being abandoned by its own pack. She titled it, Braver Than Before. One sunny afternoon, while Maya was sketching on the living room floor, I got a phone call from our real estate agent. She sounded cheerful, a tone I hadn't heard from her in weeks.
"Barbara," she said.
"Your mortgage was approved. You got the house." I froze. "Wait, we got it?" I asked, barely believing the words.
"Yes."
"It's yours. You can start planning the move." I looked at Maya. She glanced up, curious. "What is it, Mama?" I grinned, unable to hold back the tears. "We're getting our own house. A real one. With a backyard." 30 days later, we stood on the porch of our very own home, a cozy 2-bedroom cottage with light gray shutters, a small backyard, and a white kitchen where the sunlight poured in just right for filming. Maya ran inside first, barefoot, spinning in circles in the empty living room. She turned to me and asked, "Can we call this our safe house?" I shook my head gently, smiling through tears. "No, baby. We call this our forever house."
And we meant it.
It was a quiet Tuesday morning, the kind where the coffee tastes better and the air feels softer. Maya was in her room, humming while sketching. I was cleaning out the mail pile when I saw it, a plain white envelope. No return address. But the handwriting stopped me cold. Messy. Hurried. But familiar. It was Chloe's.
For a long while, I just stared at it.
I didn't feel afraid. Just heavy. I walked outside, sat on the porch steps, and opened it under the morning sun. "Barbara, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even deserve a response. I just needed to say it, all of it. I planted the $500. I told Mom and Dad Maya must have taken it. I knew she didn't. I just hated how you always seemed stronger than me. Even after you lost everything, you kept going. I envied that. I let that envy eat me alive. Now, in this cold place, I hear her voice when I close my eyes. Her crying. Her screams. I see the look on her face when I cut her hair. I ruined her. And I ruined myself.
I'm sorry.
Your sister, Chloe." I folded the letter gently and slid it back into the envelope. I sat there in silence, watching a bird land on the railing. Life had gone on. And somehow so had we. That night, I sat next to Maya on the couch while she colored stars into the corners of her sketchbook. "Sweetheart," I said, "Chloe sent a letter. From prison. She admitted everything. She says she's sorry." Maya was quiet for a few moments. Then she spoke, without looking up. "Do you want to read it to me?" "I can," I said softly. "But only if you want." She shook her head.
"No."
"I already know she's sorry. But I don't want her near me. Ever." "I understand." Then she looked up at me, eyes calm but wise beyond her years. "You can forgive her if you want, Mom. Not for her.
For you."
I sat there, stunned. My daughter, my little girl, was telling me something people twice her age still struggle to grasp. "I think," I whispered, "I'll forgive her."
Quietly.
In my heart. But I'll never forget. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "That's enough." 1 week after that conversation, Maya and I visited the Willow Haven Women's Shelter for the first time. We didn't say much. We didn't have to. We just showed up with 2 trays of homemade oatmeal cookies and a basket of fresh muffins. I handed them to a volunteer and said simply, "We just wanted to help." The director recognized me from my channel. She pulled me aside and asked, "Would you be willing to speak with some of the moms here? Some of them are just beginning their stories." I nodded.
Yes.
I'd be honored. So every Sunday, we returned. Maya played with the other kids, helping them color or passing out cupcakes. And I sat with the mothers, women who were bruised, afraid, but not broken. I didn't tell them my full story. I didn't need to. I just looked them in the eyes and said, "You're not alone. And you're not broken. You're just at the beginning." On the way home one afternoon, Maya looked out the window, quiet for a long time. Then she said something that made my chest swell with pride. "Mom, we're the lucky ones, huh?" I reached over and squeezed her hand gently. "No, baby," I said with a smile. "We're the strong ones. Thank you for staying with us through this powerful journey." This wasn't just a story of pain and betrayal. It was a story of resilience, justice, and the unshakable bond between a mother and her daughter. If you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do, if you've ever had to start over when no one believed in you, if you've ever carried pain in silence just to protect someone else, please know this. You are not alone. Healing is possible. Justice can be served. And even in your darkest hour, you still have the power to rise, to rebuild, and to protect what matters most. We share stories like Barbara's not just for awareness, but to remind you that strength comes in many forms. Sometimes it sounds like laughter in a tiny kitchen. Sometimes it looks like curls growing back stronger. And sometimes it's just knowing you made it through. If this story touched your heart, please like the video to support our work, comment below with your thoughts or experiences, and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories of courage and hope. Every view, every share, and every word of support helps us bring more voices into the light, voices that deserve to be heard. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay strong, and never stop believing in justice.